In the pantheon of American enterprise, there are tales of technological wizards who conjured empires from silicon and financial titans who built dynasties on Wall Street's unforgiving calculus. Their victories were won in sterile boardrooms, their fortunes measured in stock tickers and market caps. This is not such a story. This is the story of a man whose empire was built not in a sterile lab, but over the hot, spattering grease of a cast iron skillet. His boardroom was a roadside diner, his ledger a list of hungry travelers, and his revolutionary invention was nothing more than flour, salt, and a secret blend of 11 herbs and spices. This is the saga of Colonel Harland Sanders, a man who didn't just build a company, but became a global icon in his own 7th decade of life, armed with little more than a social security check and an indomitable, stubborn will. His journey does not begin with an Ivy League degree or a family inheritance, but in the rustic simplicity of Henryville, Indiana, where he was born on September 9, 1890. The world he entered was one of dirt roads, horse-drawn buggies, and the rhythms of the land. His father, Wilbert, a gentleman who worked as a butcher, was the center of his young world. But this idyllic foundation was shattered with brutal suddenness. When Harland was just 5 years old, his father came home one day with a fever and died shortly after. The tragedy plunged the family into poverty and thrust upon young Harland a weight of responsibility no child should have to bear. With his mother, Margaret Ann, forced to take up work to support the family, the role of household cook and surrogate parent to his 2 younger siblings fell to Harland. He was not yet tall enough to comfortably reach the stove, but in that small farmhouse kitchen, amidst the tears and hardship, a seed was planted. He learned to bake bread, to handle vegetables, to understand the alchemy of heat and ingredients. It was not a passion born of joy, but a duty born of necessity. Cooking was not a hobby, it was survival. His childhood was a whirlwind of instability. His mother remarried, and his relationship with his new stepfather was fraught with friction. The structure of formal education felt like a cage to his restless spirit. By the 7th grade, he had had enough of the classroom, a place that offered him nothing of the tangible, practical world he was already grappling with. He dropped out, a decision that would set the course for the next half-century of his life, a relentless, often desperate, search for a place to belong. At the tender age of 13, after a final, explosive argument with his stepfather, he packed a small bag and left home for good. The decades that followed were a dizzying, almost comical odyssey through the underbelly of American labor. He was a rolling stone, gathering no moss, but accumulating a lifetime of experience. He worked as a farmhand, a streetcar conductor in New Albany, and then, lying about his age, he enlisted in the U.S. Army and spent a short-lived term as a mule tender in Cuba. Discharged, he drifted to the railways, becoming a blacksmith's helper and then a railroad fireman, shoveling coal into the roaring mouths of steam locomotives. It was here he met his first wife, Josephine King. The nomadic life of the railroad, however, was no place for a family. He was a man of fiery temperament and unyielding opinions, traits that made him a difficult employee. He bounced from one railroad to another, his career often derailed by his own insubordination or a quick temper. In a brief moment of aspiring respectability, he studied law by correspondence, practicing for a short time in the courts of Little Rock, Arkansas. It seemed, for a fleeting moment, that he might finally find a stable profession. But his legal career came to a screeching halt after a courtroom brawl with his own client, shattering any illusions of a future in jurisprudence. The pattern was clear. Harland Sanders could not and would not work under anyone else's thumb for long. The list of jobs grew longer and more varied. He sold life insurance, only to be fired for his defiant attitude. He started a ferry boat company on the Ohio River, a venture that saw some success, until a competitor with a new bridge put him out of business. He tried his hand at manufacturing acetylene lamps for farmers, another promising idea made obsolete overnight by the spread of rural electrification. His life was a series of near misses and promising starts extinguished by fate or his own combustible personality. He was a man perpetually out of step with the world. By the time he was approaching 40, Harland Sanders was, by any conventional measure, a failure. He had a family to support, a string of failed careers behind him, and no clear path forward. It was the dawn of the Great Depression, an era that would break lesser men. But for Sanders, it was just another chapter in a life already defined by hardship. He landed a job running a Shell gas station in the small, unassuming town of Corbin, Kentucky, a place nestled in the Appalachian Mountains. It was here, on the side of a dusty highway, that his true life's work would accidentally begin. The station was located on U.S. Route 25, a busy thoroughfare for travelers heading south to Florida or north to the industrial hubs. These travelers were often hungry, with few options for a decent meal. Sanders, ever the pragmatist, saw an opportunity not for a grand restaurant, but for a simple solution. He cleared out a small storeroom, put in a single dining table, and began serving the same hearty home-style meals he had learned to cook as a boy: country ham, fresh vegetables, and, of course, pan-fried chicken. There was no sign, no menu, and no pretense. This was simply Sanders' service station and cafe. The food was honest, the portions generous, and the quality undeniable. His reputation, passed by word of mouth from one trucker and traveling family to another, began to grow. The single table soon became several. He was not just a gas station attendant anymore. He was the proprietor of one of the finest little eateries in the state of Kentucky. The fried chicken was the star. But Sanders was a relentless tinkerer, a perfectionist in a grease-stained apron. Pan frying was too slow, taking a full 30 minutes to prepare. This was a bottleneck for his growing business. Deep frying was faster, but it often resulted in a chicken that was dry on the inside and unevenly cooked. He was obsessed with finding a method that delivered the perfect crust and moist, flavorful meat of a pan-fried chicken, but at the speed required for a bustling restaurant. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source: the pressure cooker. In the 1930s, this was a new and untested piece of kitchen technology. Most chefs were wary of it, fearing explosions and the strange effect of high-pressure steam on food. But Sanders, the self-taught engineer and innovator, saw its potential. He acquired one and began a dangerous, often explosive series of experiments. After much trial and error, he perfected a method to flash fried chicken under pressure. This was his eureka moment, the equivalent of Soichiro Honda perfecting the piston ring. The pressure fryer sealed in the juices, cooked the chicken in a fraction of the time, under 10 minutes, and produced a product of unparalleled consistency and quality. It was a genuine culinary innovation, born not in a culinary institute, but in the back of a Kentucky gas station. Alongside his technical innovation, he was obsessively refining his seasoning. He had always seasoned his chicken, but now he sought a specific, unforgettable flavor profile. He traveled to source different herbs and spices, endlessly mixing and testing combinations. He finally landed on a precise blend of 11. He guarded this recipe with the ferocity of a state secret, mixing the spices in a separate location and shipping the pre-mixed blend to his kitchen. The secret recipe was born. Success bred expansion. He bought the motel across the street, transforming it into the 142-seat Sanders Court and Cafe. It became a landmark. His reputation reached such heights that in 1935, Governor Ruby Laffoon bestowed upon him the honorary title of Kentucky Colonel in recognition of his contributions to the state's cuisine. Harland Sanders, the 7th grade dropout, had found an identity. He began to embrace the persona, growing his iconic goatee and eventually adopting the white suit that would become his trademark. He was not a gentle proprietor. Much like Honda's Mr. Thunder, the Colonel was a volcano of a man when it came to quality. He ran his kitchen with an iron fist, his voice booming across the dining room if a dish was not up to his impossible standards. This fierce dedication to his craft once boiled over into a life-threatening confrontation. When a local competitor was caught painting over one of his directional signs, a furious Sanders went to confront him. The argument escalated, guns were drawn, and in the ensuing shootout, a shell manager accompanying Sanders was killed. Sanders, armed with his own pistol, returned fire and wounded his rival. It was a brutal, Wild West-style incident that cemented his local legend as a man you simply did not cross. For nearly 2 decades, the Sanders Court and Cafe was the center of his universe. It was praised by the influential food critic Duncan Hines in his Adventures in Good Eating guide, a seal of approval that brought customers from hundreds of miles away. Harland Sanders, now in his 60s, was a respected, successful, and financially secure man. He had finally, after a lifetime of wandering, built his kingdom. Then, in the mid-1950s, the future arrived in the form of a steamroller and a ribbon of asphalt. The federal government announced the creation of the new interstate highway system. A massive, modern superhighway, Interstate 75, was planned, and its route would bypass the town of Corbin and Sanders Court and Cafe by 7 miles. For Sanders, it was an earthquake. The lifeblood of his business, the steady stream of travelers on Route 25, would vanish overnight. He had seen his ventures fail before due to new technology, but this was different. This wasn't just a business. It was his life's work, his identity, crumbling into irrelevance before his eyes. The new highway was a death sentence. He fought it, lobbying politicians and pleading his case, but progress was relentless. When I-75 opened, the effect was instantaneous and devastating. The river of customers dried up to a trickle. His thriving, bustling cafe became a quiet, empty hall. In 1956, at the age of 65, Harland Sanders was forced to auction off his business for a fraction of its worth just to pay his debts. He was, for all intents and purposes, broke. His life's work was gone. At an age when most men were comfortably settling into retirement, he was left with nothing but his white suit, his car, and a profound sense of failure. His first Social Security check arrived in the mail, a meager sum of $105. It was a symbol of his predicament. He was officially old, officially poor, and officially a ward of the state. A lesser man would have been crushed. A lesser man would have accepted his fate, living out his final years in quiet obscurity. But Harland Sanders was not a lesser man. As he sat with that government check in his hand, a new, audacious, and utterly desperate idea began to form in his mind. He had lost his restaurant, but he had not lost his product. The chicken and the secret recipe were still his. If the customers could no longer come to him, he would take his chicken to them. He put his pressure cooker and a bag of his secret spice blend into the back of his Ford, and he hit the road. His plan was simple and, to most, insane. He would visit restaurants, cook his chicken for the owner, and if they liked it, he would make a deal. He would teach them his method and provide them with his spice blend in exchange for a royalty of 5 cents for every piece of chicken sold. He was not selling a product, he was selling a system. He was inventing the modern restaurant franchise model on the fly. The years that followed were a testament to human endurance. He drove from town to town, from one roadside diner to the next, crisscrossing the country. He slept in the back of his car to save money, waking up and putting on his crisp white suit to project an image of success he was far from feeling. He was met with skepticism, ridicule, and outright rejection. He would walk into a restaurant, a proud, white-haired man in a string tie, and make his pitch. Most owners laughed him out of the building. Who is this crazy old man in a ridiculous suit, they must have thought. He cooked countless demonstration dinners, often to be told, "It's good, but we're not interested." The word no became the soundtrack to his life. He heard it 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times. By his own count, he was rejected 1,009 times. But his belief in his product was absolute. It was a religious conviction. He knew his chicken was better than anyone else's, and that conviction fueled him through the endless nights sleeping in his car and the endless days of rejection. Finally, in Salt Lake City, Utah, he walked into the diner of a man named Pete Harmon. Harmon was a savvy operator who was looking for a new menu item to distinguish his restaurant. Sanders cooked his chicken. Harmon tasted it and, unlike the hundreds before him, he saw the potential. They shook hands on a deal. Harmon became the first franchisee. The partnership was transformative. It was Harmon who, in a stroke of marketing genius, came up with the name Kentucky Fried Chicken to evoke an image of Southern hospitality. And it was Harmon who created the iconic paper bucket, a vessel that would turn a simple meal into a portable family feast. That first handshake was the crack in the dam. With Harmon's success as a proof of concept, Sanders's proposition began to look less like the ramblings of a madman and more like a genuine business opportunity. He signed on a few more franchisees, then a dozen, then 50. He was still living on the road, a traveling evangelist for his gospel of fried chicken, driving 250,000 miles a year to visit his growing flock of restaurants, ensuring they were adhering to his exacting standards. The company, if it could be called that, was a chaotic one-man operation. The headquarters was a desk in his home. He and his second wife, Claudia, who had been an employee at his cafe, would pack the spice blend into bags and ship them to franchisees from the local post office. The business was growing at a dizzying pace, powered entirely by the Colonel's relentless energy. By the early 1960s, Kentucky Fried Chicken was a phenomenon. There were over 600 franchised outlets in the United States and Canada. The Colonel, once an anonymous failure, was becoming a household name. His face, his white suit, and his goatee were the brand. He began appearing in television commercials and on talk shows, a folksy, charming, and sometimes cantankerous grandfather figure who personally guaranteed the quality of his chicken. He had built an empire from the ashes of his own failure. But the empire was now too vast for him to control. He was in his early 70s, and the logistics of managing a nationwide corporation, the accounting, the legal contracts, the supply chain, were overwhelming. He was a cook, an innovator, and a showman, not a corporate executive. The company was on the verge of outgrowing its creator. In 1964, a young Kentucky lawyer named John Y. Brown Jr. and a financier named Jack Massey approached the Colonel with an offer to buy the company. At first, Sanders was horrified. Selling KFC felt like selling a child. This was his identity, the culmination of his life's struggle. He vehemently refused. But Brown was persistent. He understood that the Colonel's greatest fear was seeing his creation's quality diminish. He structured a deal that would address this. They would pay Sanders $2 million, a fortune at the time. But just as importantly, they would give him a lifetime salary of $40,000 a year, later increased to $75,000, to remain the public face and official brand ambassador. Crucially, they guaranteed him a permanent seat on the quality control board. They were buying the company, but they were promising to safeguard its soul. After much soul-searching, the 74-year-old Colonel agreed. He knew he could no longer manage the explosive growth alone. With a heavy heart, he signed away the U.S. rights to his company. The deal, however, did not include Canada, and he remained the independent owner of KFC in Canada for the rest of his life. The sale unleashed the full corporate power of modern business. Brown and Massey professionalized the operation, standardized procedures, and launched an aggressive national advertising campaign. KFC exploded, growing from 600 locations to over 3,500 in just 5 years. The Colonel was now more famous than ever, his face a globally recognized symbol. But this new chapter was a painful one for him. He had sold his company, but not his passion. As the brand's living embodiment, he continued to travel the country, making surprise visits to KFC kitchens. And he was often horrified by what he found. To increase profits and speed up service, the new owners had made changes. They had altered the cooking process, and, most offensively to him, they had replaced his slow-simmered rich gravy with a cheaper, instant mix. The Colonel, the fiery perfectionist, became his company's most vocal and ferocious critic. He was a walking, talking quality control department with no filter. In interviews, he would lash out at the new management. He famously described the new gravy as wallpaper paste and declared that the new, faster-cooked chicken was a damn fried dough ball stuck on some chicken. His public outbursts were a PR nightmare for the company, which was now owned by the food conglomerate Hubeline. They were paying him to be their beloved mascot, and he was publicly savaging their product. They even filed a lawsuit against him after he made plans to franchise a new Colonel's Ladies' Dinner House restaurant as a showcase for his original, untainted recipes. The suit was settled out of court, with Sanders receiving an additional payment in exchange for ceasing his criticism and selling them the rights to the new restaurant concept. Despite the legal battles and the bitterness, they could never truly silence him. He was too famous, too beloved, and, fundamentally, he was right. His rage was not born of ego, but of a craftsman's horror at seeing his life's work compromised. He was the ghost in the machine, a constant, cantankerous reminder of the standard from which the brand was born.
He spent his later years as a global celebrity, traveling the world to open new KFC restaurants and support charitable causes. He never stopped working, never stopped wearing the white suit, and never stopped being the Colonel. He was a fixture at events, always ready with a story and a sharp opinion. He had become a living piece of American folklore. In June 1980, at the age of 89, Harland Sanders was diagnosed with acute leukemia. Even then, he maintained his punishing travel schedule, refusing to bow to the illness. He continued to make public appearances, his spirit as fiery as ever, even as his body weakened. He passed away on December 16, 1980, at the age of 90. In a testament to his unique status, his body lay in state in the rotunda of the Kentucky State Capitol in Frankfort, an honor typically reserved for statesmen. He was buried in his iconic white suit and black string tie, the uniform of the character he had created and become. Harland Sanders' life was not a smooth ascent to greatness. It was a messy, meandering, and often brutal journey. For 65 years, he was a drifter, a jack of all trades who had mastered none, a man defined by what he had lost or failed at. His genius was not in inventing a new technology, but in his stubborn refusal to surrender to failure. His story is a profound lesson in resilience. It demonstrates that one's greatest success can be born from their greatest catastrophe. The interstate highway that should have been his ruin instead became his liberation, forcing him onto the path that would lead to unimaginable success. It is a testament to the idea that it is never too late to start over. He did not build his empire by following a business school blueprint. He built it with his own two hands, fueled by an obsessive passion for a simple product done perfectly. He was a relic from another era, a 19th century craftsman who, through sheer force of will, conquered the 20th century corporate world. The 11 herbs and spices were the formula, but the Colonel himself was the secret ingredient. His personality, his story, and his unmistakable image were infused into the brand's DNA. He proved that a founder's story, a story of struggle and authenticity, can be a company's most powerful asset. Like Soichiro Honda, he was a perfectionist with a volcanic temper, a man who saw quality not as a business metric, but as a moral imperative. His fury at the declining standards of his own company was the last great battle of a warrior who refused to see his flag lowered. Today,
His smiling face is one of the most recognizable logos on the planet, visible in over 150 countries. It adorns buildings in Beijing, billboards in Dubai, and buckets in Brazil. Most of the millions who eat his chicken know nothing of the long, hard road he traveled. They do not know the story of the 5-year-old boy forced to cook, the failed lawyer, the ruined businessman sleeping in his car. But his legacy is not just in the chicken. It is in the powerful, enduring narrative of a man who faced utter ruin in the twilight of his life and refused to be defeated. Harland Sanders stands as an eternal monument to the idea that passion, persistence, and a healthy dose of stubbornness can be more powerful than any business plan, and that sometimes the greatest empires are built from the ashes of a life that was supposed to be over.